How did Caitlyn Nicholson manage to ride away solo against a team that managed to get all 6 of their riders in the front selection? Welcome back to the Homegrown Advantage YouTube channel, where we provide analysis of domestic racing here in Australia. Today, we'll be looking at the longest women's one-day classic in the world, the Women's Warrnambool Classic. Starting off in Colac, we had 155.7 kilometres on the route to Warrnambool, touching the Great Ocean Road before coming back inland. On the all-important crosswind watch, we had a pretty strong southeasterly, which was a cross tailwind for most of the day, gave the bunch plenty of opportunities to split things up, which we saw later on. Rolling out, we had the first QOM point pretty much instantly after the neutral zone ended. The weather at the start line, it was pretty cool, being such a long race as well. There were no turbo trainers at the start, no riders warming up there. So I think everyone was just getting the legs warmed up as we went up that first climb. The break of the day, that went a short while later on with Celestine Wells of the Nostromo Cache team. She went solo, ended up with a lead of roughly 4 minutes or so. And just check out the body position here. She's looking super strong, really good sort of time trial position, holding that aero posse really nicely. So great job for Celestine Wells at the front there. Chantal McCarthy from the Women's Cycling Development Initiative. And for the first half of the race, we really just had these two riders. They were each solo, never came together. I think McCarthy got to about a minute and a half or so away from catching Wells, but never quite got there. As we came down onto the Great Ocean Road, about 80 kilometres in, the gap to the two out front started dropping dramatically, and that was as the riders in the bunch started to look to thin things out. So the pace increased dramatically, that gap dropped rapidly, and the two riders were absorbed pretty shortly after. You can see here the front group thinned out, and they're still attacking. So we had a really aggressive back half to the race, and it was non-stop action pretty much from this point until the line. So just here, you've got a group of 5. They ended up with a small gap. So you've got Ali Anderson, super strong rider, Josephine Pepper, third last year, Savannah Coupland, Aberdeen McLean, both very strong rides on the day. And then that rider on the back there is Frankie Hall. So she's the only Praties rider in this group, and they had their whole team of 6 in that front selection. So to only have one rider in this group, it's taken them from being in a position of comfortably in control to slightly losing their grip on the race a little bit here. And Frankie, she does the right thing by her team. She sits on. She's eventually helps the league leader, Talia Appleton, come across. So they've got a bit of extra firepower in that front group. So now they've got 2 riders in that front group. And then Keely Bennett, actually from the Duda cycling team, she came across. This tells me she's going to be an absolute force to be reckoned with this year. She's a super fast sprinter. And to also be able to have the strength to bridge across solo to a group like that tells me she's got some serious form at the moment. So she gets there, and immediately the rest of the break look at each other and go, yep, no way am I towing Keely Bennett to the line. She's just going to dust me in the finish. So they all start to sit up, and sure enough, that group comes back. At this point, we come back to the front selection of roughly 18 riders. You've had that breakaway come back, the main group, they've absorbed it. And then there were actually a few chasers who managed to come back. So we end up with a front group of 18, 6 of which are Praties, which is insanity. So 1/3 of this leading group are a single team. They've got some of the strongest riders here as well. And interestingly, this is where it all went wrong for them. Katelyn Nicholson from Butterfield Zip Track Racing, she makes a move around the right-hand side. So this is pretty much just as those groups have come together. Perfect timing from her, because physically everyone's pretty cooked from all of those surges coming back to the front. And then mentally as well, there've been quite a lot of attacking up to this point, and that takes a toll. You have another move to follow now. And you can see her positioning for the attack here. Excellent. You're in a group of 18, so you don't need to be, at the very, very front. You don't want to be at the very back. She comes from sort of 3/4 of the way back with a lot of speed, and you can see she's in full flight by the time she comes past that group. So Frankie Hall, that's the Praties rider here. She can't snap onto the wheel instantly. So Nicholson, she pulls a little bit of a gap out. Josephine Pepper, you can see here, is the only other rider to respond, and eventually linked up with Frankie Hall, but they were too late, and Caitlyn Nicholson's attack, her timing was too good. So she ends up with a gap out the front. She's got 2 chasers, and really interestingly, no one chased from the bunch. So the bunch have no reaction at this point, and I've no idea why. Caitlyn Nicholson, she's the Oceania Road Race champion. She won that race in similar fashion to here. She's a very strong time trialist. She was second as well at the SA Kick-It. Super strong in these situations. So she's out there by herself. And in my opinion, Praties, they have one rider, Frankie Hall. They need to chase down their own teammate in this situation just to stop Caitlyn Nicholson. Sophie Marsh, she's in this chase group. She's second in the league standings. Excellent sprinter. Good chance of winning the race should she come to the finish at the front of the race. Talia Appleton as well. She's here, very capable of going solo at the end. The current league leader as well. And I understand that they have pretty much a guaranteed podium spot if the 3 of them stay out the front. But as long as Nicholson's powering ahead, your chance of winning is almost zero. If they chase down Hall and then they used her in the chase to get to Nicholson, I think their chance of a podium goes down, but their chance of winning the race increases dramatically, and ultimately isn't that why we were all here? So kind of surprising not to see them chase. So they let the gap go out. Nicholson, she doesn't have to worry about rolling turns with anyone. There's no back and forth in her head of how am I going to win the race later on? Am I managing the effort? All that sort of thing. She's just head down, full throttle, straight to the finish, and that's her element. So she's flying at the end here. Behind, Hall and Pepper, they worked pretty well together before Hall attacked, and they'd been sitting at about 25 seconds or so for the most part. But then Hall got away, the gap blew out to Nicholson, and it became pretty clear at this point that Frankie Hall by herself wouldn't be strong enough to catch Caitlyn Nicholson. So Nicholson's just powering ahead. And at this point, we know who's going to win the race. She's miles ahead as well because the group behind, they waited for so long. Nicholson's now minutes up the road. She was about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes at this stage. And they've only got a couple of kilometers left in the race. So at this point, completely game over. Great timing by Nicholson. Super strong solo effort after the fact, after the attack to back it up. So really impressive win for her. Frankie Hall, she hangs on for second place. Josie Pepper, she comes in for third. And her Duda teammate, Keely Bennett, actually took out the bunch sprint behind for fourth. That was 3 minutes down to give you an idea of how far up the road Nicholson got. So really impressive from Keely Bennett. She's looking super strong. Obviously has a lot of speed there. She's actually just signed for the Meridian Blue presented by 99 Bikes team. No doubt we're going to see her on a few podiums this year because the Duda team, not a Pro Velo Super League registered team. They're just here racing the Warrnambool Classic. But the Meridian Blue team, they're going to be doing pretty much, I think, every round. So hopefully we'll see a bit more of Keely Bennett in the PSL this year. Just behind Keely Bennett, you've got Talia Appleton, who nudged out Ali Anderson for the points on offer in the under-23 classification, and she extended her lead there. Ali Anderson, she's going to have to start closing that gap down pretty quickly if she wants to be in with a shot to win that Liverpool-Jayco Continental contract, especially as they're heading into the Tour of Tasmania, which should favour them both. And I'm expecting a really solid duel between the two of them because Ali Anderson, she's going to want to make the mark on this race. She's going to want to try and claw back a bit of that advantage that Talia Appleton has. Don't forget as well, Ali Anderson, she missed the first round while racing the Tour Down Under for the national team. So definitely, obviously very strong rider, lot of motivation there. Really looking forward to that battle between the two of them. The rest of the top 10, you've got Odette Lynch in 7th place, Mia Williams, Savannah Coupland, and then Sophia Salmons. League overall standings, Talia Appleton, she now leads Caitlyn Nicholson by only a single point. Nicholson, she is not eligible for the under-23 classification, but hopefully for her, winning the league should get her a bit of attention for the rest of this year, even if it doesn't land her that continental contract. But we'll just have to wait and see where it ends up after Tassie to see if she's still in the running. I expect to see Caitlyn Nicholson do quite well there. And if she does end up winning the league overall, she beats Talia Appleton and she has a few really strong performances. I don't really see why she wouldn't get a bit of attention, but I'm curious to hear what you think. Leave a comment. Do you think Caitlyn Nicholson is going to get the attention she needs to make that step up out of Australia by winning the Pro Velo Super League here in the elite category? That's all for this time. We'll catch you in the next one.